Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be looking at repairing the weapons of these vintage Kenner Star Wars figures. All Star Wars figures come with their own little unique weapons, but some of the larger ones do have a tendency to break, and as you can see these three figures all have their weapons broken, so I'm going to show you a way to easily fix them. It requires the same technique on all of them, but we have to go down in scale because each weapon gets smaller and smaller. So let's get on with the project and fix all of these weapons.
Shall we fix some toys?
So here are the figures, and as you can see all of their weapons are broken. We start off with a nice little Leia Bouche here. She has a particularly long gun, and as you can see this one has snapped just near where the barrel joins the main part of the gun. It's a fairly neat snap, so it shouldn't be too hard to repair that. We also have a Wee Kwai here, and his weapon, just the small top part of that has snapped off. Again, a pretty clean break, so that shouldn't be too hard to fix. And then finally we have an Endor Rebel Commando, and as you can see the back part of his gun has snapped off. This is particularly small, so this is probably going to be the hardest one of the lot to fix, but I still reckon we can fix it. And how are we going to fix it? Well, we are going to have to drill some very small holes and pin it and glue it. And for the pins, for the larger weapons, we are going to be using a paper clip like this, and for the small weapon on the Rebel Commando we are going to be using a staple. There's actually a few staples here. We'll be taking one staple off and we'll be using that as the support that goes inside. And for drilling the holes, I have here my pin vise. At the moment this has got a relatively small drill bit in it, but when we come to do the staple I have even smaller drill bits here, so we'll be drilling even smaller holes. So let's get on with fixing this by drilling a couple of holes. We'll start with Leia's weapon. I think that's probably going to be the easiest of them. So as you can see on Leia's weapon, it's basically the barrel has snapped away. It's a relatively clean break. There is a little bit of a sort of bit of plastic sticking up there, which makes it slightly more awkward, but it shouldn't be too hard. And the idea is what we've got to do is drill a small hole right in the center of the break there, and then a small hole right in the center of the break on the opposite side. And into that we are going to be inserting a small piece of this paper clip just to add some support. If you try and glue this just as it is, there really isn't anything to hold the two pieces together, and any minor flexing of the barrel will just snap it off. So what we need to do is add the support inside, and that will take all of the strain. We will also glue it, but it will be the metal inside that takes most of the strain. So to drill the holes we are going to be using a pin vise, which is just a small handheld drill, and you can put any size drill bit in it, and I've already chosen a drill bit that is pretty much the same diameter as the paper clip here. Now we've just got to drill the holes, and there's no right or wrong way to drill the holes. You just got to go slowly and make sure you get it as central as possible, because you've got to line it up on both pieces. So if you make it central it should just line up. So let's get drilling these holes, and then we'll see if we can insert a piece of paper clip into it and get this put back together. There is a little bit of trial and error with this, and I have to say the smaller you get with these weapons the harder it's going to be. So this is a relatively small weapon, but it still should be possible. When we get onto the Endor Rebel Commando's weapon, that one's going to be very tricky because there really isn't much plastic to drill into, but we should be able to do it. So let's drill these holes anyway. So that's the first hole drilled, and as you can see I've now got a bit of paper clip that sits in there pretty nicely. On this second piece, because of the way that this is broken, I'm actually swapping to an even smaller drill bit here. So this is like barely 0.5 millimeter in sort of diameter, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole as close to the center as I can. If it was a clean break I would just go straight for this sort of larger drill bit, but I need to put a pilot hole to make sure that I've got everything lined up, just because I'm almost drilling on a sort of slight angle. It's not a flat surface. So if it was a flat surface I go straight for that drill bit, but because it isn't I've got to do a little pilot hole first. Okay, so I've now drilled both holes, and I've got a little bit of paper clip just put in the barrel there. There's no glue involved at the moment. I've literally just pushed that paper clip in. Now we can line it up with the hole on the main part of the gun, and hopefully all of these bits will line up pretty much perfectly. And that's not too bad at all. You can see that does actually now fit together. There's a little bit of a gap there. I've got it slightly off, but I think overall I'm very happy with how that's lined up. So I'm not going to glue these ones just now. Let's fix up the next weapon, which was the skiff guard weapon. And we're going to be using exactly the same process on this one. I'm going to drill a couple of holes, and then I'm going to insert a piece of paper clip. I don't think the break on this is particularly awkward, so I'm just going to go ahead and drill with the larger drill bit. But if it is slightly awkward, I will always start with the smaller one just to do a pilot hole. But I think both of these pieces have actually broken fairly neatly. So let's go straight with the larger drill bit. So there you go, that is that one done, and I'm pretty pleased with how that's sort of gone together. The paperclip has gone very neatly into the main sort of handle there, and I think I've got it as close as I can get. It's slightly off. I think if you really studied it, you would say that it's not quite lined up, but as a sort of overall look, I'm very happy with how that's gone, and certainly by the time that's glued, I don't think anyone will really notice that that has been repaired. Now we move on to the final one, which is the much harder one, just because it's such a fine piece of plastic. Drilling into the main sort of body there shouldn't be too hard because we've actually got a reasonable thickness, but it's this little handle piece here which I think is going to be the really tricky one. So I've put a very small drill bit in my pin vise here. It's about the same diameter as this little piece of staple that I've got. You can see just about the same. So the next thing to do is to drill these holes, and I'm just going to go very slowly and see if I can get them lined up as best I can. I'm going to drill into the body first because I think that will be the easiest one, and then we'll try and drill into there, and then we can cut a small piece of that staple and do exactly the same as we've done on these ones. Once I'm happy with everything, we can then start gluing these all together. But let's get this one done and just go very slowly. And as expected, that was actually a lot trickier than you'd imagine, just because it's such a tiny piece of plastic that you're drilling into. I've got it lined up pretty closely, but it's slightly off. I think it's slightly over to the right there, but the overall effect is still very good. And if I just pull that apart, you can see there's just a very tiny piece of staple just left in there. So now we've got to glue all of these together. We're going to be using super glue, but we're not going to be putting the super glue directly on the pieces. What I will do is put some super glue onto a bit of paper, and then I'm going to carefully sort of dip the bit of staple into that glue, and then we can push those two pieces together. You only need a small amount of super glue because it's really not doing a huge amount of work. Do the same on these as well. You can see that the paper clip is actually quite firmly held into that piece, so friction is going to be doing an awful lot of the work. The super glue is just to hold it together, that final little bit. So let's get all of these stuck together. So here is just a normal everyday Loctite super glue. I will put some onto this bit of paper here, just a blob of it like that. Let's start with the bigger weapons. So you can see I will pull this apart. I'm going to get some super glue just on that paper clip, just a small amount. It really is just a small amount. And then push those two pieces together like that. Make sure everything's lined up, so we can leave that one. We'll do the same on this one. So again, there's the paper clip. Bit of super glue just onto the end of that. Just a tiny amount. And we'll push those two pieces together. That looks good. And then we'll do the same on this one. Very small amount of super glue on this one. And then push those together. We'll let everything set, and that's all of those weapons repaired. And there you go, that is the three weapons all back ready for display. As you can see, it's a fairly simple process, and it's a process that I've shown many times before. Gluing and pinning really does add that extra bit of support. If you just glue some things, they're never going to be that strong. What you need to do is drill a few holes in, add a little bit of support inside, and in this case it's a paper clip and a bit of a staple, but sometimes I use bits of Lego. Anything that just adds support in size, and depending on the size of the hole you're drilling, that will determine what sort of thing that you can put in there. And in this case, as I showed, paper clip for the larger ones and a staple for the smaller one, and these weapons are now really strongly held together, and they're going to be absolutely perfect to go back on display here at toy-polloi. So hopefully this video has been of interest to you. If it has, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed this video, then why not think about supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all of my restoration videos, and also access to an exclusive series called On the Cutting Mat. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.